we're starting to see Xbox's transition, away from consoles exclusively and more into this sort of console PC hybrid.
Yeah.
We've seen Xbox on PC, but this is kind of like an Xbox PC. In terms of what you were saying about increasing the size of the audience, I think that's problematic because the pricing is high.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like for those that could afford it.
And now for a sponsored message from Keyword Studios. Passionate fandoms are the bedrock of a successful video game franchise, and our friends at Keyword Studios have a mission to cultivate that fandom. Keyword Studios' marketing services bring together expertise in research, strategy, creative production, social media, PR, and community management to help you build your audience and connect with your fans. These marketing services bring together award-winning marketing agencies, including trailer production studios, PR specialists, and social media and community experts. With teams in North America, Europe, and Asia, Keyword supports video game marketers across the globe to produce campaigns for gaming's biggest titles. They may be marketers, but they're gamers first. And for nearly 2 decades, they've been putting their love of video games into everything they do, helping marketers connect with their fans. From indie to AAA and from mobile to PC to console, Keyword supports studios with marketing services across the entire lifecycle of their game. To learn more, visit www.keywordstudios.com. Now, back to the show.
Hello and welcome to the Game Business Show. Today, what did we make of opening night live? The European video game market has declined, and we're here at the Xbox booth to talk about Xbox. To help me to do that, I have Alex Donaldson.
Hello.
Eurogamer editor-at-large and founder of RPG site.
And various other fingers in many pies.
Journalist extraordinaire. Alex, let's just start with so this is Gamescom's just opening.
Yep.
But opening night live happened last. It's actually quite a busy one. There was quite a lot of games announced. What did you make of it?
I felt like it was a broader spread than the last few sort of opening night live. I guess what I'm saying is it felt like more like the sort of spread that you get at something like the Game Awards or Summer Games Fest, where usually I feel like Gamescom opening night live is a subtler.
Yeah, a more European maybe.
Yeah. A lot of European-centric stuff.
Yeah.
But it felt broader and, everyone was there yesterday to some degree, even if it was not actually in at ONL, like with the Kirby Direct and stuff like that. So the whole day felt larger than last year, I felt.
I also felt there were more Nintendo Switch 2 announcements, which isn't saying very much in the whole of Summer Game Fest. But it was also, I think, was it this E3 moment? Because they're talking about Gamescom going to be is it finally going to replace E3? And this felt stronger than I've ever seen Gamescom's opening night live. Obviously, in the years past, Sony used to have a press conference, and EA had a press conference, and Xbox would have a reception, which is what we're here doing. So it used to be bigger back then, but I actually felt this was quite significant. I actually felt it was probably stronger than Summer Game Fest.
That's bold. That's a bold statement.
Maybe not in terms of surprises, but Resident Evil was here, Call of Duty was here. There was the Black Myth title, Hollow Knight was here.
Well, actually, does that not give you the old E3 Gamescom dichotomy returning to some degree, where it's like, so Capcom had Resident Evil at SGF, and they announced it. They made it very limited playable to a handful of people and showed a little bit, and then here they've shown a lot more. They're making it playable to a wider range of people, including the public.
Yeah,
and it's the blowout, the same sort of thing for COD, which is the old E3 cadence, right? Of you would see Mass Effect 3 at E3 and it would be hands off. And then I probably came to this very hall, probably over in that corner, and played Mass Effect 3 here 2 months later. So you feel like you're getting that back a little bit.
Yeah, but I was trying to think about what would E3 look like if it happened this year. And I actually think most major companies would have been there. Maybe Ubisoft wouldn't be, Square Enix wouldn't be, but Take-Two have got some games out. EA's got Battlefield. But they all have fewer games, apart from Xbox. They'd all have fewer titles at these things. And but they weren't all there at Summer Game Fest. Where apart from PlayStation, and even then PlayStation had an announcement last night and the latest Ghost of Yotai stuff. Everybody's here. Nintendo have got a massive booth. They weren't there at Summer Game Fest. Xbox's booth, okay, this is about half the size.
We were talking about this before we started, right? Where this is definitely half at minimum, but it might actually be a little bit, half at most, but it might be a little bit less than last year. But last year was like this big coming out party statement for Xbox. And actually a lot of last year's booth was quite empty. They had like gachapon machines that were giving you Xbox Live codes, things like that. So they've stripped it back, and, Blizzard obviously is elsewhere in this hall.
Yeah, Blizzard were there last year, not in this booth this year.
But it's on a theme, right? Where you look at these stands, like I can see Sega over there, and it's got a huge, huge stand but it's ostensibly for one game.
Yeah.
And when I walked through, you felt that quite a lot, where it was like a lot of big stands, but also quite a lot of empty space. Part of that is out of necessity for Gamescom because the footfall's so high. They have very big walkways compared to PAX or E3 or whatever. But at the same time, it tells a story about where we're at with publishing, right? Where every publisher's got a little bit less. And that's the thing. Can E3 ever come back when every publisher's got so much less?
Yeah, and sometimes they don't have a game at all, like your Ubisoft or someone like that. I do find it funny, though. We're at the Xbox booth. It's the press bit of the Xbox booth. So it's not as busy as it will be. And there's loads of pods for Grounded 2. We're at the Age of Empires bit here, which is a very Gamescom. By the way, Age of Empires is always a Gamescom.
RTS games in general.
Halo Wars is always announced at Gamescom.
Command & Conquer.
But the ROG Xbox Ally, I think they've got 20 units on,
Yes.
and that's going to be an absolute packed queue. But it's
Silksong.
five displays, five opportunities to play Silksong.
Media were fighting to get on those Silksong pods at the start of this to be the first to get their previews up.
I find the PR campaign for Silksong to be very strange. There's no big re-reveal trailer. It's been sort of little snippets of footage in various events. And now it's here and you can play it.
Sometimes less is more, especially when the hype has built that much. And I'm very curious about the story they're going to tell about why that game took the time it took. Because there's got to be something interesting there, whether it's a reboot, whether it's a creative rethink, whether it's a break. It'll be interesting to see.
I thought all the stuff last night, opening night live, it wasn't last night, but 2 nights ago when this goes out, was very good. I tell you what, though, I think the problem I have with and I know that I'm speaking, I'm the game business is part of Jeff Keighley's project, so I'm aware of what I'm saying here.
Yeah.
There is an awful lot of games with colourful shooters where someone's jumping up high and shooting down below. There's a lot of Souls-like games where there's a house with arms and legs chasing someone down the street.
Lords of the Fallen.
There's a lot of JRPGs, which I know you love. There's a lot of those. And I think it speaks to the same audience. And I often worry... Indiana Jones was here again.
Yes.
Because it's got DLC coming out in next week, I think, or 2 weeks' time. That, for me, went, oh, that's different. And Lego Batman, even though it's another Lego game, I thought, oh, that's different. And it wasn't a lot of difference. There's a lot of similar looking stuff. And I was trying to reason with myself, is it everyone just making the same game? And I just think it's the nature of an event which has an audience and has certain people that want to pay, and it's not like a platform holder who will go, no, we're not going to run that trailer because that's too similar to this.
It's also the publishers, right?
Yeah.
Because who's always missing from these things?
Yeah, yeah.
And Nintendo provide a lot of that flavor. And you think about the broader, we've come a long way from, in a negative way, from when we had Breath of the Wild gameplay debut at the Game Awards. Nintendo truly now only does everything on its own, really, it feels like. And that does hurt the overall flow of...
Yeah, but I do think like, if the trailers were a little bit more story focused. I know that's a ridiculous thing to say. Everyone says, just show gameplay. Because the gameplay is always big man with sword hits things or, shooter, bang, bang, jumping. And I just sit there and wonder, could we not have something that focuses more on the flavor of it? We had Glenn Schofield on the show earlier in the week, right? And he talked about his next game, and he said, and honestly, I was won over by it. I have no idea what the game is. He said, Ramesses VIII's tomb is the one that's never been found. They're still looking for it in the Valley of the Kings, and I've come up with a game idea where his tomb is not there. And I just went, I want to play this game. And I don't know, what is it? Is it an action game? Is it a shooter game? He then starts talking about monsters and stuff, and I become less interested. But it was sort of Egyptian horror mystery is something that I'd be well up for. But yeah, I don't know.
The whole CG trailer thing has been a debate forever. What I will say is I've got an interview later today with the creative lead on a game that was revealed or shown last night. And I watched the trailer prepping again this morning, prepping for my interview. And it was like a CG. And I was like, this is giving me nothing.
Yeah.
What I know is that this game exists. I don't know that broadly what the tone of it is, but other than that, it's given me nothing. Which,
you don't get it. Like when I watched Superman movie 3-4 weeks ago, and every trailer before that, apart from one of the kids' ones, was really like I was like, oh, because it's story, right? And that is how they can focus. We show gameplay, and our gameplay is perhaps a little bit more, stabby, jumpy, shooty. But
gameplay you can look. We had the Kirby Direct yesterday, right? And
45 minutes.
45 minutes and Sakurai for 5 minutes explaining what the B button does. And yet that 45 minutes absolutely flew by. I can't explain why, but it's yes.
I think Donkey Kong's Bonanza's Direct was only 15 minutes.
Yeah.
But I can't.
It's Sakurai, you let that man cook.
He just probably asked and it just went, yes, of course.
I think they do as he asks because he's so, they know you don't mess with him. I even laughed a little bit of the little self-referential reference to Mario Kart he made, where he was like, this is a racer with only 6 races on the track, because when you have lots of racers, it becomes more confusing and it's harder to have comebacks from behind. And who wants to play a game like that? Then he sort of looked into his lap a little bit, knowing that Mario Kart World is hundreds of players, it feels like sometimes.
Yeah. What do you think of Call of Duty had a big reveal? It looked like Call of Duty like via Remedy in terms of its...
Well, the first trailer had that vibe as well, right? Beware that CG trailer at Summer Games Fest. People initially thought it was some sort of Remedy game.
Yeah.
I like it. You know, at the end of the day, Call of Duty is going to be Call of Duty.
Yeah.
You can't expect too much different out of it. That formula works. So if you can take something aesthetic like that and have world fracturing, stuff like that, and make it a little bit more interesting without upsetting the cart of what COD is, I'm fine with that. Like, it doesn't particularly blow me away. I think when it comes to the shooter world, I'm more big shooter world, I'm more intrigued about Battlefield at the minute. I feel like they've got more on the line.
Yeah.
And more to lose. But I think it looks cool. And I'll always make time for COD. But
yeah,
it's interesting. I was chatting to someone the other day, and I was talking about Call of Duty is a series that absolutely knows has shifted identity quite a lot.
Yeah.
But absolutely knows what it is. And I was talking about it in the context of I was talking to someone about Magic the Gathering. And Magic the Gathering is a franchise that is both at its peak of success, but also is in the grip of a really weird identity crisis. And that's sort of the antithesis of where COD is in the grip of its success, but absolutely knows what it is, even though what it is has changed quite a lot. And even though that upsets some, not all, of its player base. Because I'm sure there's some player base that are like, I don't want any of this nonsense, any of this control-y, Alan Wakey stuff. I just want, Warzone and more guns and rebalance.
Which they can get.
Yeah, exactly, right? So, yeah.
Xbox was there in quite a big way, in a way. It was relatively, you didn't announce a lot of stuff. There was a PlayStation version of Age of Empires. Again, very, very Gamescom announcement, that one. And they showed, little bits and bobs around Indiana Jones on Switch.
Yes,
they finally announced on the game for Switch after Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4. We're at their booth and it is quieter. They've announced stuff around the ROG Xbox Ally, including the fact that they've got sort of like a Steam Deck verified system going in place there, so you can know which games will run and which games will run well on the Xbox handheld, which is out in October. So that's quite it's quite exciting actually. It should be exciting. I don't know. I don't know if I should be excited or not. I don't know if Xbox. I can't. I'm speaking to them later, and I'll speak to them after this, and I'll share with the listeners of the game business what I heard from them. But I can't work out how big they're treating this. I know from conversations I had before that this is what they call an hours ad. So the objective is not to necessarily sell to new customers, it's to sell to existing Xbox players.
Yeah.
I'm excited for it because I like the idea of playing the Xbox games on the go, but
I think there's something to us in general as an industry moving more into a space where it is that argument that Phil Spencer's been making for a while actually about play your games anywhere.
Yeah.
But it's more ways to play your games and more hours ads. So like yesterday I was with Nvidia and I was looking at GeForce Now, and that obviously is their game streaming service. But unlike a Stadia-style experiment where Stadia wanted to supplant your Xbox or your PlayStation as your way of playing games, GeForce Now is really not intended as that. And it makes that obvious because the only way you can play games on GeForce Now is by piggybacking it onto your Steam account, your Xbox Game Pass subscription, whatever. It's just a way to play these games in more ways, in more places. And that tech is incredible now. Like, that tech is the streaming that was promised. But I think what's more interesting is the concept of that streaming as promised as an alternative way of you playing your games.
Yeah.
And not the way you play your games. So I played Expedition 33 quite recently, and I played it 3 ways. I played it on PC, natively, high-end PC, really beautiful graphics. I played it on Steam Deck natively when I went on a flight, because I didn't have an internet connection. And I played it on Steam Deck using GeForce Now when I had an internet connection, where that was coming through the cloud and looked as good, almost as good as the PC version at home. And that's sort of that's the dream that's been sold, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I still want just one device that does it all.
Yeah.
I don't have not between the two, not between multiple ones. We'll talk about the ROG Xbox Ally later. There is a few other things they've got going on over here.
Yeah.
They've got you can get a rare tattoo for their 40th anniversary.
I did not see that.
It's sort of in the corner. I think it should actually
You'll definitely be going and getting that.
I kind of like...
We need a photo of you with that on your arm.
a banjo tattoo or something. So yeah, there's a few other little bits and bobs here.
There's an indie select booth over there, and I think that's really interesting because I think that's a big part of what Xbox is being strongest at right now. Like, say what you will about what's been going on with first party, which is a lot of stuff, but that indie operation...
ID's amazing.
Yeah.
What I will say is it's worth noting that Xbox had a load of third-party games they're working on. Almost all of them have been not cancelled, but they've ended the contract.
Yes,
right?
like, yeah,
So
contraband and
there's
stuff.
about, there's about, I think they've only got about 2 they've still got on the go. They've closed most of them, which is so yeah, the sort of yes, they're still doing a lot with the indies.
Yeah.
They've got their own first party stuff, a lot of it still, but it's the stuff that we didn't even know about half those games.
But speak to those. I mean, whether it moves units, grows the Xbox ecosystem is another question. But like, you look at this booth now, the most popular game here is an indie that Xbox is supporting, and actually probably the second most popular here is probably going to be Meat Boy, which is over there.
Yeah, all right.
And Invincible Versus as well, I think looks really cool. So like, those sorts of games I think are really important to Xbox.
Oh, I think they're really important for the whole industry. We just had, so I'll change topic slightly. I don't know if you saw, we reported earlier in the week, finally GSD have shared some data, which I've been trying to get them to do, and I'm really pleased they did it. Thank you, GSD, about where the video game market is in so far in Europe. Market is 6% down in units. It's like 2% down in revenue for the first 20 weeks, but so revenue's a little bit stronger.
Yeah.
It's worth noting GSD doesn't track everything. It tracks everything perfectly, but everything it tracks, it does perfectly.
Yeah.
But it doesn't track things like Expedition 33 isn't in there, Repo's not in there, Schedule 1 is not in there, Peak isn't in there. But what's interesting to me about that data was Assassin's Creed Shadows is the best-selling new EA Sports FC, as it always is, number 1. Assassin's Creed Shadows number 2. Assassin's Creed Shadow bigger than Monster Hunter Wilds in Europe, bigger than Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I'm not too surprised by that one. But it was bigger than Split Fiction. It's like the second biggest selling new IP. And I was genuinely like, do you believe the internet? Assassin's Creed Shadow has been a colossal disaster.
Well,
and yet Europe, clearly, it's got an audience.
You can't believe the internet. And there's interesting things in that, like Monster Hunter is a fascinating one because that game was tremendous out of the gate.
Yeah.
But it just didn't have the legs the world has had. And it's had all manner of user complaints in terms of balance, performance, stuff like that has really hurt it. I think Shadows almost went the other way, right? Where it had a lot of hate in the run-up to release. Yeah. And then as people played it, people were like, oh, this is good. Yeah. So which always helps, right? Yeah. And I'm not surprised by Split Fiction at all because that game is remarkable.
Yeah. Well, no, Split Fiction, in the top 20, both Split Fiction and It Takes Two, which are both developed by Hazelight, are both in that chart. I'm genuinely, you're talking mega numbers here. There's some of EA's biggest hits.
And that's like 120 people?
Yeah, I know.
Or thereabouts, something like that?
Well, yeah, it's not really indie anymore, is it?
No, but even so, that's 120 people is quite small, really, in the grand scheme. And for those numbers.
It's also, the market was also a little bit more digital. What I found, actually, one of the most interesting stats, I didn't actually talk about it on the show very much, and I should have, in the story that I wrote, was that on average, gamers have spent €29 per game over the course this year, which is $2 more than last year. So one of the conversations we've had Ampere sharing this data, with a lot of analysis looking at is actually cheaper games are more popular at the moment, go lower on your pricing, which still might be the case. But actually, gamers per game are spending more on average than they were 12 months ago.
Well, I think people are more willing to spend a bit more on indies, spend a bit more on shorter games than they were. I feel like the appreciation for that sort of stuff has gone up. I'll be very curious in a few months' time to see how Mafia stands up and all that. For that reason, because that's about 10, 12 hours.
It's also worth noting, I think the first half this year has been maybe a little bit more AAA heavy.
Yes.
And Mario Kart World's in there, which is a more expensive game.
I think in the media we noticed that. Like, I think when all of us media look back at our performance over the year, it's going to be a front heavy year.
Yeah. Now, before I wrap up, before I have to go in and play the ROG Xbox Ally, what are you looking forward to seeing while you're out here in Cologne?
You know, the interesting thing, and this is an interesting thing about Gamescom in general. Most of the things I'm most excited to see are embargoed for quite some time.
Oh, so you can't tell me.
So yeah, so my top 2 are embargoed until September sometime, which is again, that's an interesting change just in the structure of the show and how the show factors in and how publishers are approaching marketing like runouts. I'm seeing 2 things today that I'm really pumped for, and I can't on camera tell you about any of them.
Oh. Well, that's a non-answer.
What I will say is the best thing that I've seen so far, just in terms of sheer confidence, was that GeForce Now stuff from NVIDIA, where they've been confident and that tech's been really good for a long time. But they're just growing it and growing it. It's getting better and better. It's getting more reliable. It's needing less important internet connection. They've just announced the upgrade so before it was 40 series graphics cards. Now, if you're on their top tier subscription fan, you get 50, 80 quality. So that means you're getting the highest level of fidelity, almost that's equivalent of a £1,000 graphics card. And you can play a game on that through streaming through this service. They've got this weird thing they've changed on the service, which basically means the number of games it's compatible with has doubled now. It's now 4,000 some on Steam. And I think I will struggle to see anything that sort of wows me as much as that, just in terms of the effort.
I do wonder sometimes, though, I go to these shows, I often get wowed by technology, and then it doesn't ever... I remember I went to E3 once where it said, stand on this spot, and they were showing Avengers on the screen. I couldn't hear it because it was a busy E3 show floor. So on the spot, and suddenly I was like hearing surround sound Avengers. Couldn't hear the rest of E3, could only hear Avengers. Stepped off the spot and I went, this is incredible. That was 10 years ago.
It's going to change the world.
I've not seen it since.
Hey, I remember my first Project Natal demos where it had much higher fidelity, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then obviously the final thing was much more. What I will say about that is, though, GeForce Now, at least, is an existing technology. It's just an upgrade.
Yeah.
Like all those upgrades they announced yesterday, I'm pretty sure they're all out now. You can go home and try them. And I'm just really impressed by it as an idea. And I think any individual game will struggle to top that. But I am excited to see more Sonic Racing.
Oh, that's a good game.
James Bond is here.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's...
You know what? It's going to be a good year for British games. So I know James Bond's, I.O. and
They've got a studio in Brighton, though.
That game's being made partly in Brighton.
Yeah.
Lego Batman last night, obviously TT Games, a UK studio. GTA's next year, obviously.
Yep.
UK studio. Fable and Forza next year as well. UK studio. It might be a good year for our local market.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to playing, because I'm old, I'm looking forward to playing. I played Star Wars Dark Forces for the first time with a Night Dive remaster. Fell in love with it. And when I saw Outlaws, I'd never heard of before, made in the same engine, I was like, I'm after that. That's how boring I am. And I
Nothing boring about that.
I might get a rare tattoo.
I want to see a photo of you on the stream with a rare tattoo.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, thank you, Alex, for joining us. I'm going to go and check out this handheld, and I'll report back in a moment. So I've just come out of a meeting with Xbox where I spoke to some of the creators of the ROG Xbox Ally and the ROG Xbox Ally X handheld. And we also got to go hands-on with it. And the person who was there with me in that meeting was none other than Digital Foundry's very own Richard Leadbetter.
Hello there.
Richard. How you doing?
Fantastic. It's great to be here.
It's great. I'm delighted to have you on the show. We'll have you on the show fully at some point to talk about independent Digital Foundry, which is very exciting. But what did you make of it? What did you think of the handheld?
There's two sides to this story, right? There's the software, which is kind of like primarily driven by Windows and Xbox, right? And then there's the hardware side of things where we're actually looking at the third generation product. So we had the Asus ROG Ally, that was the first one. We had the Asus ROG Ally X, which I think is pretty much right now the best gaming handheld you can get in the PC scene. And the new one, I don't know whether it's Xbox ROG Ally X or ROG
Let's just call it the
Xbox.
Xbox handheld.
Yeah. This one is quite interesting because there has been hardware design input from Microsoft into this, into sort of refining this third generation product. But the really interesting thing is we're starting to see Xbox's transition away, not just away from consoles exclusively and more into this sort of console PC hybrid. We're seeing it like we've seen Xbox on PC, but this is kind of like an Xbox PC. And I find this quite interesting because it's going to need work. It's going to need time. But what you also need is a first generation product to actually work with. And that's what I think this is. Similar to the way in graphics, the future is AI and ray tracing. That's what the PS5 Pro does.
Yeah.
It's like a frontier product for what is to come in the future. But the challenge with Xbox is actually much, much greater because Windows is not great for a handheld.
Right.
And we've got Valve, who've basically mastered the console hybrid PC with the Steam Deck, certainly in terms of the interface, right? So what Microsoft are doing is effectively a launcher.
Right. Okay.
So you can actually access Game Pass, you can access your Microsoft library, but you can also access Steam, EGS, GOG, all of the rest of it. So they're wanting to sort of integrate themselves into the wider PC space, and they're using this as a kind of frontier product to make that happen.
Now, you asked a load of technical questions I didn't understand in the meeting, but I asked one question, which was, Is this primarily about giving Xbox players something else to play, and means for them to be able to take their games on the go and play them in other environments, and hours play effectively, get more hours out of those players? Or is it an opportunity to reach more mainstream consumers, maybe in a Switch style way, and expand the Xbox ecosystem? The answer he gave me was both, and he talked about simplifying the experience on the Xbox handheld, the ROG Ally X, so that people can just jump in. But I have to say, from my experience, it still felt like a PC handheld, and it didn't feel feel easy to plug in and play.
Well, I said to them, it's coming across as more of a PC than an Xbox.
Yeah.
For a start, your existing library of Xbox games, unless it's Play Anywhere or it's on Game Pass, it's kind of, what can you say? You can't access your Series S and X libraries, for example, if there is no PC version. You can't access backwards compatibility from Xbox 360 or Xbox One. You can't access the OG Xbox. So the concept of what a digital library is and how it arrives on this device, it's nascent. It's not there yet. I reckon all of that stuff's going to happen, right? Your access to Xbox 360, OG Xbox. But right now, it's a PC with an Xbox launcher.
Yeah.
And I think there are issues there. I've made it crash a few times. It's very early days still in terms of the software. I mean, they've got some time to get it right. I mean, I think both of us managed to load in 2 games at the same time, and it didn't like that.
No, it did not. I thought something was wrong, and they had to film my bits. And what's annoying is I was playing quite well at the bits when it was moving really slow. And so, I mean, I quite liked it though. I mean, I like gaming on the go. I'm a Switch player because I like it.
Okay.
But I am a bit lazy. I just want it to play perfectly when I plug it in.
This is a problem, right? Because they've got this handheld compatibility thing where they've basically, similar to Deck Verified, right?
Yeah.
Where it kind of guarantees that this game is going to run well on the Steam Deck. They've got their Xbox compatibility alternative, so to speak. But when I asked them, well, does this set up the correct settings that are appropriate for a handheld? It's like, well, we've got to work with the developers on that, which is basically something for the future, but for the present, you're kind of stuck. And in which case, it's more like a PC than an Xbox. Xbox is plug and play. You load up your game, you're good to go. Everything has been curated for you by the developer. If you've got that existing library of games that hasn't been curated by the developer, it's a PC where you're looking to lower settings or adjust settings to get a good experience. And that's kind of, there's a lot of stuff where they're saying, okay, this is stuff we're working on. It's going to come later or going to come soon.
They did talk about a roadmap. So this is a journey, maybe October 16th, I'm trying to remember the date now.
That's the release date,
is not going to be it'll be a very good ROG Ally, I think.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. The hardware's top notch.
Yeah.
I don't think, unless you're going to go in crazy with specs, that you can make something better.
Yeah.
But in terms of what you were saying about increasing the size of the audience, I think that's problematic because the pricing is high.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like for those that could afford it, which, I think, how many has Steam Deck shipped or sold? It's like 3 million or something.
It's not a huge number, is it?
And that is affordable, right? And this is not that affordable in comparison.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to, I'll get it. I'm looking forward to playing some of these games on the go. I'm not entirely sure many of them are built for it, but then I thought that about the Steam Deck as well.
Yeah. And I think for the PC enthusiast, half the fun is actually getting AAA games working on a handheld, right? So there is that, but it's not quite mainstream friendly. But I think, hardware fine, software is an ongoing, they admitted it, you're quite right. They got a roadmap, an ongoing journey of features that they want to add. And I think it's okay in the short term to have this frontier product that's actually quite expensive because, it's not going to sell millions, but
yeah, it's how you begin. And I like, I don't think Xbox are expecting anything from it. I don't think they're going to be disappointed. I think they know what they've got. They know it's probably going to talk to the same Steam Deck audience and ROG Ally audience. And it just, they clearly hope that it can do more. But probably down the line. Mm-hmm. Richard, thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Great to see you.
And we'll have you back on to talk Digital Foundry and independence and all things soon. That's it for today's episode of the Game Business Show. That's it for this week at Gamescom. But don't worry, we've done loads of interviews. We have a live show recorded here that we'll be releasing over the coming weeks and days. Until next time, Thank you for tuning in.